Hello, and welcome back to Growth Decoded, the only show about the customer experience that filmed the first episode of the second season from Content Marketing World in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm your host, Ernie Santorelli, and yes, you did hear that right. We are in Cleveland, Ohio. See? Now, why are we in Cleveland, Ohio, you ask? Well, that's easy. To talk to the biggest influencers, thought leaders, experts, authorities, and geniuses in the world. Which world? Well, that's even easier. Content Marketing World. Welcome to Season 2. This is a show that helps you grow your business by figuring out the customer experience one piece at a time. No, tote bags. This is Growth Decoded. This is Growth Decoded Season 2. And this is a backdrop. We would have liked to bring the living moss wall from the studio in the Active Campaign office in Chicago, but it didn't fit in the van. So we did the next best thing that we could think of, which was taking a photo of it and then printing that photo out on a sheet and hanging it up behind me as a backdrop, to make me feel like I'm at home. Now, one thing from home that did fit in the van was Plantasia. Back again, looking healthy as ever. Boom. I was sort of surprised to find out that Plantasia is a big fan of murder podcasts. Now, we're in Cleveland, Ohio at Content Marketing World 2021, and that means that we're in the same place as a ton of the best and brightest minds in the marketing universe. So we got to thinking, with all of these thought leaders in one place, the same place as us, why not investigate the topic of thought leadership? What is thought leadership? How important is it? Can small businesses or even individuals be thought leaders? How do you get thought leadership? Is it even real? Who's doing it well? And what are the things that you need to do to get it? Now, to answer these questions, you're going to hear from the experts. Which experts? Roll the tape. And I'm joined now by Michael Barber, who's a brand consultant and marketing strategist. Michael is here at Content Marketing World presenting and was generous enough to sit down with us for a few minutes. Michael, welcome to Growth Decoded.
Thanks so much. I appreciate being here.
And now I'm joined by Melanie Deziel, who is a keynote speaker, author, award-winning marketer, and the Chief Content Officer at Storyfuel. Melanie, welcome to Growth Decoded.
Thanks for having me. It's good to hang out.
Yes, and now I am joined by Zontee Hou, who is a founder, marketing and communications advisor, and the current director of strategy at Convince and Convert. All right, we are joined now by Handley, best-selling author, keynote speaker, chief content officer, email marketing extraordinaire, and welcome to Growth Decoded.
Thank you so much.
Joe Pulizzi, who is a best-selling author. He is a founder, he's a podcast host, amongst many other things, and he is kind enough and generous enough with his time to stop by the Growth Decoded set today. Joe, welcome to Growth Decoded.
Thanks, Ernie. I appreciate being here.
The digital engagement supervisor at American Fidelity Assurance Company, Rachel Mann.
Hi.
B2B marketing strategist, international speaker, author, CEO of Top Rank Marketing, Lee Odden. Lee, welcome to Growth Decoded.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Jantsch, who is the author of Duct Tape Marketing. He's a speaker, the founder, and we're very glad to have you with us here. Welcome to Growth Decoded.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been a long-time Active Campaign user and fan of the way you guys have grown from the early days to the where momentum you've got now. It's pretty awesome to see.
That is great to hear. Awesome. Keynote speaker, best-selling author, founder of Convince and Convert, Mr. Baer. Jay, thank you for being here. Welcome to Growth Decoded.
Cheers, Ernie. Thank you very much. Great to be here at the Content Marketing World event.
Yes, absolutely, and I will take this opportunity. Happy birthday to
Thank you,
sir.
It does have to be my birthday.
Innovation and marketing strategist, best-selling author, keynote speaker, Carla Johnson. Carla Johnson, welcome to Growth Decoded.
Thanks, Ernie. Great to be here.
Yes,
Great to be anywhere outside my little office walls.
Yeah, that is the truth. Okay, now that we've met our guests, the first order of business is, what is thought leadership? How do you define it?
I would look at it as, first of all, I think it is something that should be bestowed upon you, not claimed on your own. But thought leadership is disproportionate knowledge and expertise in a category of information that people care about.
Man, how do I think about thought leadership? To me, thought leadership really means just carving out your own space, figuring out what is your position on things, what do you stand for, who do you serve, what are you all about, and how do you help those people? That's really where I think that's the peat moss, if you will, of thought leadership.
Yeah.
Well, I think when
people start talking about thought leadership, they're like, oh, well, we need to be the leading expert in our niche. And that's not the wrong place to start, but I really think what you want to focus on is who is the audience we're trying to target? What are their pain points? What keeps them up at night? And if we can figure out a way to deliver value to that audience over a long period of time consistently, then we can elevate status to become a thought leader, whatever that might be. So I think that you can't just set out and say, oh, yeah, we want to be a thought leader. I think that you have to give, and you have to give over a long period of time. And what do we give? We give amazing content experiences, and if we do this successfully throughout, way surpassing whatever you think a campaign might be. So this is for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, maybe the audience will let us in. Right. Maybe then we have the opportunity to see some behavior changes, and that's when really thought leadership comes in.
It's interesting because, especially at a conference like this, you hear this term a lot, thought leadership, who's a thought leader, and hopefully all of the speakers are on some level. I think that it's tough. There's nothing new under the sun. It's hard to be a thought leader in an area, especially where we learn from each other, and so a lot of things are regurgitated. So definitely having a different angle on something. It may not be the new fancy thing that nobody's doing, but just having your own unique perspective on it. It's definitely difficult to have that thought leadership. So people who have that, it's good to find.
So for me, I think thought leadership comes down to one word, and that's expertise. I think the challenge for brands right now is that you just have a tremendous amount of noise that's occurring. And because thought leadership has become this buzzy word that everyone needs to do because all the experts like ourselves tell them to do that, that they've created just a ton of noise. But the challenge, I think, is right now is what we need expertise to be able to cut through that noise. And for me, that's what thought leadership it is, defining your expertise in a certain area.
It's an interesting term and label because I think over the last year, it's probably changed in a way, because I think stereotypically thought leadership was a brand, a person who put out a lot of content on a particular topic, and over that time, just by sheer accumulation, they were perceived as a thought leader. But I think especially in this last year with all the change that we've had with the pandemic, with different social issues, I think that definition is changing a little bit more, and it's not just about putting out content and maybe being ahead of where your industry is and talk about where it's going. I think it's also more about taking a real stand for something that you believe in. And I think purpose comes into the arena of thought leadership more. And in that way, what do you stand for now? How do you advance that cause?
I like that it's sort of emerging that like thought leadership is kind of this catch-all term. It's like this nebulous term that means, do you know your customer? Are you moving the conversation forward? Are you solving the problems? Are you doing it consistently? We are truly investigating thought leadership. It's great.
Well, and we probably spend too much time thinking about thought, and that's a modality, right? But it's really the leadership aspect. Right. Frankly, it's just great leadership that happens to actually, in some people's minds, grow because of the platform that you are expressing your leadership thoughts on. And I think that's where people get caught up. It's like, oh, thought leadership is a new, groovy term that's just come along from the, because of the days of the internet, but it's really just good leadership is what it is.
I think you've got to break it down, thought and leadership. Original, innovative thought, and of course leadership, people are looking for direction. They're looking for inspiration and certainty, and especially in times like these. And demonstrating leadership in terms of, the authority on a topic, a specific topic, and the validation by third parties that you are the most credible, or what I like to call the best answer for a particular topic.
I think that a lot of businesses, organizations think of thought leadership as a thing that they have to produce, right? If you are a thought leader, you are out there not only sharing the critical points of view and synthesis of information that help to drive the industry forward, but you're also taking in the information that's necessary to have those points of view, right?
Yeah.
So thought leadership isn't a product that you produce. It should be a mindset for your leaders within your organization to go out into the world with. But when it comes to producing quote-unquote thought leadership pieces, again, you have to ask yourself, what's the actual point of all of this, right? Do we need to be on the bleeding edge of our industry in order for our customers to trust us? For a lot of customers and a lot of industries, that's actually not what they really want.
Right.
What they really want is to know that we have the right guidance with people who have relevant experience and that are really thoughtful about breaking down the steps that we need to take in order to get where we're going.
Okay, it seems like thought leadership is this very desirable thing. Brands want it, or they want to create content that makes them a thought leader, but what does that actually mean? And how important is thought leadership really?
I mean, it can be important. It can be very important if that's for your strategy. I think that's one of the things, especially as marketers, we do so often is just because people are doing something, we think we've got to do that, you know, TikTok is important or Clubhouse is important. But it really comes down to what's important for your strategy. And so if it's going to benefit your brand to be a thought leader, to be seen as an expert on a particular topic, then I think it can be absolutely a central part of your strategy. But there are certainly some brands, I mean, I don't want to call anyone out, but like, what brand of paper towels do you use? Like, do they need to be a thought leader in absorbency? Like, probably not. Like, that's probably not a key part of their strategy. But yeah, especially if you're in an info space, if you're sharing knowledge and that's really what your brand is or what your value is, I think there's a lot of value in people understanding that expertise.
Well, I think they're to be designated as such. I mean, there are some benefits to that, I suppose, for somebody. But I really think the biggest thing is it's really a byproduct of what it is that you're doing, what it is your mission is or your goal is or, why you're even, doing what you're doing or what you're passionate about. I think that title, if you will, is something that is really just a byproduct of that. It's like a viral video. Anybody who tells you I'm going to create a viral video, is probably going to be right 1 out of 100 times. It happens by producing something that was relevant, that was, right on point, that was funny, that was unexpected, and then the byproduct of that is that it goes viral. But again, going back to point of view, generally speaking, it's a consistent point of view about something that makes a video go viral even.
Probably less so than people think, for a lot of reasons. I mean, to me, thought leadership is really how well can you answer questions that people have. Can you be the best answerer of that particular query? And if you want to position that as leadership, because you can either answer it more authoritatively or more interestingly, or you can answer a question that maybe nobody has thought of yet, then sure, put that out there. But I think generally speaking, if you tie thought leadership as a quote-unquote term of art back to things that really matter, like revenue and sales and profits, I think it's probably overrated in many cases.
Well, right now, if you look at audience building leading to some kind of thought leadership, there's an audience land grab going on. I mean, if you look at the organic content marketing programs that are happening, and then you look at the acquisitions that are happening in the content marketing space, I've never seen anything like it. And a lot of it has to do with frankly, for many reasons, there's a lot of funny money going on in a lot of corporations. So you actually, for the first time, can answer the question, or you have the question is, should we build or should we buy this content experience, this audience base? And it's something valid, because you might not want to say, well, we need to take 2 or 3 years to build this audience to become this thought leader. Or you could say, well, this thing, that content brand already exists out there. Maybe we should take some of our funds and purchase this so that we can build on that instant relationship status that other content brand had. So that's sort of what we're seeing. Now, it's going to take you time either way, but I'm excited about the fact that this is the first time you're seeing chief financial officers get involved in this conversation and saying, okay, maybe we should buy that media site, that blogger, that podcaster, that newsletter writer, that TikTok specialist, that Twitch streamer. Those conversations weren't happening 2 years ago like they are now. And so for the next 18 months, it's kind of, we used to look at the gold rush. Now we've got this audience land rush that is really a thing, and the opportunity is now. And so if you're any content marketer out there, any marketer in the space, you should have your list of who are those companies, those content entrepreneurs, those content creators that we should purchase, because if you don't, your competitors probably will.
All right, so thought leadership is definitely beneficial to brands, but how do you get it, or obtain it, or achieve it, or become it? Help
Well, I think an important part of thought leadership is understanding it shouldn't just be a marketing approach, marketing strategy. A true brand who's a thought leader really looks at the how it's infused in how they do everything about them as a business. So if you're a company that wants to be a thought leader and you're putting your perspectives out there, and this is what we believe in how the industry is moving, then if you're a true thought leader, that's how you behave all across the organization. And I think because we've peeled back any kind of curtain and layers that previously hid how companies performed and thought, and I think clear down to that employee level, it's more important now and more obvious now that true thought leadership really infuses into everything that every employee does, because it really only takes an employee or two who can really blow up that perception of whether or not a thought leader is just a marketing approach or whether it's something you truly live as a company.
Well, it is really closely tied to that idea of having innovative thought, original ideas about something. You're solving problems in the industry in ways that others are not. You're creating value, you're creating impact, and you're creating experiences through execution of those sorts of ideas that other people are a part of. And there's an expression I like to use, if they care, they'll share. And when you create great experiences for people, not just informing them, but helping them feel, the impact of a thing, they're going to talk about you. And, today we're all empowered with mobile devices and all different ways of connecting digitally and creating content that, you can have a digital-only experience and people can, edify you, talk highly about you, and it's very easy for them to propagate that message. But an in-person experience like this one, creates even more opportunities. And so I think if you're empathetic with what problems are that exist in the industry or in the community in which you want to be influential or be seen as a thought leader, you can go ahead and target those sorts of things, right? What do you want to be known for?
Right.
And people will talk about it.
I think it's being a thought leader is always a byproduct of something else. Like, I think of myself as a curious person, and I always want to be growing and evolving. I gave a talk here at Content Marketing World. It's my 11th year here. Now, I wouldn't be here for 11 years if I showed up every year and I gave the same talk. Like, what would be the point of that? Right. And so I think, it's you're always growing and changing and evolving, like we said, we started this conversation, saying. And so I think that's in part why, because you want to always be thinking about what is that next thing. You're curious about something. You have this sort of innate curiosity, this feeling that you always want to be growing and advancing. And so I guess that is part of being a thought leader as well.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, to me, and I never have ever called myself a thought leader and never will, because I really, really believe that that's not a term that you decide. That's a term that other people decide for you. Right. So if you want to be a thought leader as an individual or as a brand or as an organization, the people who are trying to find and consume information are those who get to bestow that crown upon you. I don't think it's something that you claim. I think it's something that's given to you. So to sort of become a thought leader, I think takes some sort of actual, you got to have the goods, right? So you actually have to be an expert or an authority. But I think it also takes some measure of consistency and time. It's, to me, it's pretty rare for somebody to become a quote unquote thought leader or a brand to become a thought leader in a month or a quarter or even a year. I think you have to develop that expertise and then continue to prove that expertise week after week, month after month, year after year. I mean, I wrote, this is not an exaggeration, Ernie, I wrote 5 blog posts a week, every week, for 3 years. So that's however many blog posts that is. It's 250 a year times 750 blog posts, probably, before anybody ever used the word thought leader in conjunction with my name. And I think that's what it takes. I mean, you got to stay at it a little bit.
It's so funny because I actually think that's part of the reason why that question that you asked me about name a brand that's a thought leader kind of tripped me up a little bit, because I was thinking, wait a second, I don't know. Like, I've never thought of them as thought leaders, but Are they go-to resources for me in this industry? Sure. So wait a second, I guess that is a thought leader. Wait a minute. It all's coming around. So I'm not sure that there is a line. in some ways because you never call yourself a thought leader, right? Like the minute that you see, thought leader appear on my LinkedIn profile, you should just like send somebody to my house and just smother me with a pillow because, no one, you shouldn't do that. Like no one, that's a no. So where is that line? I mean, I don't know. I think as when maybe other people refer to you as thought leaders, like being a good thought leader is kind of like being a good parent or like being a best friend. Like you'd never call yourself, like I'm the best friend in the world. I mean, maybe you would if you really thought highly of your friendship skills. But for most people, they let other people do that. They let, other people call them a good parent or a good son or good daughter, whatever the case may be. And I think it's more powerful when it doesn't come from you. And so I think thought leadership being a thought leader, being designated a thought leader is very much like that as well.
So it's sort of just a byproduct, maybe, of following all the rules.
Yeah, I mean, when you go in and if you look at somebody's content marketing strategy and they say, we want to be a thought leader, I don't know what they mean by that. Right. So what we try to reposition and say, okay, well, you want to build an audience is what you're trying to do. You want to build an audience through valuable, relevant, remarkable content experiences. You want them to opt in to whatever the communication is that you're offering. And if you do that over a long period of time, they come to know, like, and trust you, then you can pretty much sell whatever you want. But that process is much longer. So, that's why I don't like the confusion over thought leadership, and I like to focus it on, okay, really what you're trying to do is build an opt-in audience, which hopefully will lead to community, which hopefully will lead to you seeing behavior changes.
So I think one thing that's important is to separate consistency from frequency. If you're feeling the pressure to be posting every single day or 3 times a week, and that's not doable for you, you can still be consistent twice a month. Right. You can still be consistent once a month, right? Do something big once a month, and that's going to be more valuable. And the best example I give of this is, what TV show have you ever watched that releases episodes inconsistently? Right? If you're watching on live TV, they come out every week on the same day at the same time, and that's how you build an audience and you build a following. Imagine if Game of Thrones, imagine if over the last 10 years or however long they've been running, they just put episodes out without warning on random days of the week at random times. Nobody would watch it. You wouldn't be able to follow along. You couldn't build an audience around something because it's just happening haphazardly. Right. So again, coming back to Game of Thrones, they didn't come out every day. Sometimes they made us wait a year and a half or 2 years between seasons, right? But they did it consistently, and they brought out that season, and it rolled out week over week. And so give yourself that permission. You don't have to do Game of Thrones level production, but that it's okay if you're managing those expectations of, we do one really awesome video or one really big blog post every single month that has everything you need. That is so much better than 40 crappy blog posts that no one's going to read.
Know your audience, know where they are, know where they're looking for content.
And who they're listening to, right? I mean, we of course have this just buzzy word right now around influencer marketing, both on the B2B and B2C side. But I don't think I can drive this point home enough to say that with the amount of messages that we receive, the amount of emails, the amount of advertising, the noise we feel from social media, the pressures of our day-to-day lives, your spouses, your husbands, your partners, your kids, your dogs, your significant others, your family, right? We more than ever as a species lean on people that help elevate our concept of ourselves, and those are influencers, right? So building really great partnerships with influencers can be an incredible distribution opportunity for any brand, because it allows potentially those organizations that partner with those influencers to get in front of people who would otherwise not be looking for their messages, their marketing.
Especially in a sea of information overload and just so much content and competition for attention, being that beacon of certainty and consistency, the continuity of putting out, really good information, and being validated for that by others, absolutely will help you stand out.
I may be in the minority there, but every time I see somebody actually write thought leader in their own bio, I throw up my mouth a little bit.
Yikes. Okay, so it seems like there's some trends emerging here. Thought leadership is expertise in a particular subject area, a niche, a niche, a niche? Potato, in a specific area. It's expertise that's achieved through consistency, but how do you know it when you see it? How do you achieve expertise? Do you have to say something new, something distinct? Do you have to have some unique point of view. It seems like that would help, but what does that actually mean? And is it necessary?
Yeah, thought leadership is a mindset. I love that. That's fantastic. In terms of like the importance or like the validation of the thought leadership aspect of it, like you just mentioned, a lot of people don't even think that it's that important. Is it sort of like I don't want to say like an inflated idea, but is it something that is, is it necessary? Is it?
Great question. I think you're exactly right that in some ways it is an inflated idea. It's become a little bit of a buzzword. I think that we've gotten into this trap where, especially, I work with a lot of B2B clients where thought leadership is this thing that we have to have because other people have it, and our leaders within our organization believe that we should be sharing this thought leadership. But again, depending on the industry that you're in, your customer doesn't necessarily need you to be the perspective on what's happening with their industry. For instance, I was just speaking to a health tech client where they were like, we want to be telling people, what does it mean in terms of what's happening in the news right now? So obviously in health, coronavirus stuff, they're like, we want to have a point of view on that. And I'm like, but is that actually what your customer is coming to you for?
Right.
And for their particular customer, the issues that were really on their mind were more on the business side of things. So how do we grow our business as a health business, right? And so I said, the truth is, when you look at what the data is telling us, where we should be producing resources is really on solving those issues. So you can be a thought leader in that space, but that's a difference between what the C-suite of their organization believes is important versus what their customers actually want.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, right? And it kind of comes back to this idea that we've heard a few times, the unique point of view, or this, distinctive aspect of it that we need to have this if we're going to be considered thought leaders. What is do people need to have a unique point of view? How important is that? And like, how do you look at what that actually means?
Sure. I think that when we say distinct point of view, often people think we have to have a pointed point of view. We have to be in there being like, yes, we believe in these things. No, we never do those other things. Again, in some cases, maybe that's helpful. Certainly, if you're in a consultancy, like the business that we're in, we do need to have a strong point of view because we are telling you that you are going to come to us for advice. So we need to be able to distinctly define our point of view around different issues and make that clear to you. But again, if you're not in that kind of business line, point of view is less important to me than again, what is your credibility and what is your authority? How do you show people that you are trustworthy in your space as somebody who can speak about this issue credibly and demonstrate that? So again, if you're in an organization where you are more B2B, I have a lot of clients in technology, in financial services, and regulated industries, healthcare, higher education. These are places where a lot of people think, yes, we have to be out in front with our CEO, our CMO, our CFO, telling people what matters. My question is, can those people actually break down important things for the audience in a way that allows the audience to take action? Because if they can do that in a really credible way and be a really great teacher, explainer, synthesizer, that can be the quote-unquote point of view that they're actually coming to the table with, and that can be really valuable.
I mean, I think in some spaces where there's a lot of need for thought leadership, where it's really, there's a plethora of thought leaders on some topics, right? Maybe being differentiated isn't as important because there's room for many voices. But particularly if you're in a niche space and you're focused on a subset of that topic, I think having that differentiator is key. You look at even an event like Content Marketing World where we all speak about content marketing, but there's 3 days of sessions. They can't all say the same thing, right? So you've got some folks who are talking about email marketing, and that's how they're setting themselves apart. So I think especially if that subspace, if that subtopic is what's really important, then that differentiator is really key. I do think that some people struggle to figure out what their differentiator is. It can be tough if people ask you the same kind of questions, or if broadly as an industry we're having the same conversations to figure out, well, what's my unique approach to it. And my advice is always to look to your background and your experience. So for me, I study journalism, and so my approach to content is really through the lens of journalism. I didn't study marketing, I didn't study advertising, so I'm really coming at it from like a pure storytelling point of view. And that allows me to talk about the same topics, but in a different way. So looking to your background, your history, your experience is usually a really great way to figure out what you can bring to the table that's a little different.
What would be a good analogy to describe this? I think you have to have, you've got to have sort of the standard stuff, right? Whatever the product or service is, you've got to know what the best practices for are, the 7 things, the 10 things, how to do this, that, and the other, right? The sort of tactical content, if you will, the how-to content. That stuff you've got to have that's available to you, because without it, when someone goes to search and understand, like, do they know what they are doing, it's not there. But then I think you do have to bring a unique maybe value proposition, maybe it's tone and voice and it's around brand itself, but there has to be something unique about that thought leadership. Now, that uniqueness doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't think, the content itself. It can be how you bring it to life. Maybe someone hasn't brought it to life in some, digital experience before. It could be the same, top 5 recommendations to get better email opens or distribute content or build your brand. And the way that you've brought your uniqueness is how you've packaged it. You've packaged that experience around the content itself. It could also be, hey, where do we distribute this? Maybe there's channels that your competitors or people that haven't distributed into. Maybe there's a big hole in Reddit or Quora or TikTok or wherever that your competitor hasn't filled that void, where you could put in just the standard carte blanche content that everybody else is doing, but because you're first there, you're at least offering your voice in that space where no one is. You could do that in that space. There's got to be necessarily, I think you've got to do both. I think you've got to do the tried and true and then bring something unique to it. It may be original thought leadership and expertise. It may be the way you're presenting it. It may be the way you're distributing it. But thinking about all those different components, I think, is important.
No, and I think it's rarely true from that perspective, right? Like, I did a whole presentation at, boy, this is going to take me on the Wayback Machine, Blog World 2012, I think, or 2013, with Joe Pulizzi, the founder of the Content Marketing Institute and Content Marketing World. He and I did a session together, and that whole session was about your secret sauce isn't actually secret. And it was this whole idea, even back then, that if you think you're a thought leader, it probably just means you haven't Googled hard enough. The chances are somebody else has already answered this question and probably done it pretty well. And true sort of we own this category, we own this topic, we own this sort of informational baby doesn't happen very often, especially now in this information-rich, sort of content creation-focused world. It's kind of hard to truly have a thing that nobody else has. And if you do have it, your competitors or others in the category will probably mimic it pretty quickly. For example, as we are here together, it's late September. How many marketing 2022 trend reports will be written in the next 6 weeks? 10,000, 100, infinity? How many of those are thought leadership? I don't know. I would say maybe 0.
Whether you call it a unique point of view or what we call it a content tilt. So if you're starting the content marketing strategy, you might say, oh, okay, well, here's what we know is our expertise, our skill area. Here's our audience, and here's their desire, their problems. And you match that up and you say, okay, great, we're going to talk about mechanical engineering to this audience. And you might say, that's enough. So let's go start the blog or the podcast or the e-newsletter series or the YouTube channel or whatever. The problem is that's not enough. You have to take it the next step. And we call this, to your point, maybe it's a new point of view, but it's a content tilt. And you have to find an area of differentiation where you can break through all the content clutter. That could mean it's a different point of view. That could mean you're focusing on an audience that hasn't been focused on before. It could mean that you're talking about the conversation in a different way that nobody else is talking about. It could be that nobody else is having this conversation on Twitch, so you're going there. So there's a lot of different ways to differentiate. Point of view is one of them, but it has to be something. So everyone says, oh, there's just so much content clutter. How do we break through? Well, there's been so much content clutter since the dawn of the printing press.
Right.
So what do we do to break through? And great media companies and great content marketers have always said, to this audience, we're going to talk about this in a different way. And this is our content mission. And if you do that well consistently over a long period of time, you will break through. You have to look at it a little bit differently, and most content marketers don't take the extra step because they feel they have to go broad to get the largest possible audience, but actually you want the opposite. You want to target the smallest possible audience with a content mission, again, back to your thought leadership, where you can be the leading informational expert in your niche. And then if you do that consistently, then you can have all your wildest dreams come true. But you want to go really niche to start with, and then you can always go broader. And that's what every great media company has always done. We just don't know it because when we look at a successful media company, we see how broad they are. They didn't start that way. They started this way.
Right.
But we forget that.
Okay, so the unique point of view, or differentiator, is an indicator that you are a thought leader, that you're saying things that others aren't, and that you're leading the conversation somewhere new, or in a new way that it hasn't gone before. I mean, after all, leadership is right there in the phrase, thought leadership. But how do you get to the unique point of view?
There's the phrase about show, don't tell.
Yes.
I think it's also about know, don't tell. Like, know your customer, don't just tell them what to do. And I think that's an important distinction. And unless you build that relationship, you're always going to be a little bit behind what you could be, unless you drew on what your customers know and think and experience in their own world.
Well, I think sometimes it comes, like we all think about this spark of light, that I think, oh my God, I have an idea, but I think it's really more of going out and experiencing things, trying things, failing, getting up, saying this worked, that didn't work. I remember the first time, my big, if I was going to have a point of view to duct tape marketing, it is that marketing is a system. And I remember the first time saying that just almost casually because I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense to me. And having like people in the audience go, oh my God, that's brilliant. I thought, okay, I'm going to say that again and again and again. And I think that it made me realize that even though I wasn't looking for some innovation or some like polarizing point of view, I stumbled onto one, but I cemented why that was going to be my point of view by basically seeing how people responded to it, that was missing. That was a gap in how they had thought about marketing at the time. And so, I think a lot of people will tell you that things like that are happy accidents, frankly.
It's interesting that you say that, like you said it and then you saw the participation aspect of it. You see the response.
Yeah.
So is thought leadership, is it a conversation?
Well, I think very much so. I think that's probably the genesis of it. I think thought leadership starts probably with one person talking to another person. It might even be somebody trying to sell something, which is essentially what I was doing, frankly, when I was talking to groups. I'm trying to sell them on what it is that I'm doing. And you start realizing that, the deeper you go into one conversation and you start hearing it over again, you start repeating it over and over again, you start seeing it resonate over and over again, I think then it starts to become something that you can take one to many. And I think that's probably how it starts. I don't think anybody wakes up and walks out on a stage somewhere where there are thousands of people standing and saying, this is an idea that I have. And, it's like, oh, you're a thought leader. It's like everything. You plant a seed and that seed grows and you stick with it. I think what happens to a lot of people, especially in this world that we live in today, I mean, the speed of change is just accelerated in so many ways, and certainly in the tactics world. And I think that, part of what makes somebody a thought leader in my mind is that they stick with something that they believe in, that they're passionate about, and not just chase the new opportunity of the week. That's what you see so many people doing, wanting to be first movers and seen as thought leaders for that. But I think true, over time thought leaders, there's almost a maturity, to the idea that
I think it can look different ways for different people. One thing that I found, especially, having changed industries through my career, is not to compare yourself to other people. Mm-hmm. That definitely can help you differentiate, because then you're not thinking about, okay, what are other people doing? You're really just focused on what you are focused on, and then all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, this is a thing that I could share with people, and that's unique and different about what I'm doing, rather than, looking at everyone else around you, because then you're outward thinking, you're not really focused on your specialty and what makes you unique.
So we had a team meeting and we said, well, there's no way that we can be the leading informational expert when we're being overrun by these other companies. We said, well, where can we be the leading expert? We said, we can do this for marketers in larger enterprises. We feel that we can focus on real complex content marketing situations for marketers in very large companies. And we said, we had to be honest, could we be the leader? And that's where you have to ask yourself, like, can you really be the leading informational expert? So you have to niche yourself down until you can. So the answer is, you do the work up front and figure it out best you can. Okay, what's that sweet spot? What's the content tilt with all the information you have? Then hopefully you set up all these listening posts on social media, customer surveys, talk to your audience and figure out, oh, okay, something's changed. And you meet with your team. That's why when you have a content marketing mission statement, you read it before every content meeting. Because you want to say, is this still true? Are we still focusing on this audience and this is our niche and this is the audience outcome? Because then one day somebody on your team will say, something's changed. I heard this. I talked to the salesperson, and then you have to make the change. So you iterate over time. You need to be agile. You need to change. So you work with the information you have. So make the decision. What's that content mission statement you're going to go after? And then set up all those wonderful listening posts so you know what's going on with your customers, and then you can change on a dime if you have to.
Awesome. Okay, so thought leadership is not just something you wake up one day and have, or something that you get recognized for by the Thought Leadership Association of Planet Earth, though that would be pretty cool. You don't get to decide it. Other people do. Does that mean that thought leadership is a conversation?
Well, I think good thought leadership, really high quality thought leadership, always looks at the response to people. I think, 20, 30 years ago, it was very one way and here's what to think. But I think now it is more responsive to the audience and the group that you want to be the thought leaders for, or you have earned that reputation as a thought leader. I don't think any kind of communication anymore in any industry or business can only be one way.
Yes, for sure. That was...
Those were the old easy days, you know, but there, we have too many ways to have conversations and too many ways for people to see how we do business and if we actually are stepping up and putting the pedal to the metal for what we say we believe.
Well, I think very much so. I think that's probably the genesis of it. I think thought leadership starts probably with one person talking to another person. It might even be somebody trying to sell something, which is essentially what I was doing, frankly, when I was talking to groups. I'm trying to sell them on what it is that I'm doing. And you start realizing that, the deeper you go into one conversation and you start hearing it over again, you start repeating it over and over again, you start seeing it resonate over and over again, I think then it starts to become something that you can take one to many. And I think that's probably how it starts. I don't think anybody wakes up and walks out on a stage somewhere where there are thousands of people standing and saying, this is an idea that I have. And, it's like, oh, you're a thought leader. It's like everything. You plant a seed and that seed grows and you stick with it. I think what happens to a lot of people, especially in this world that we live in today, the speed of change is just accelerated in so many ways, and certainly in the tactics world. And I think that, part of what makes somebody a thought leader in my mind is that they stick with something that they believe in, that they're passionate about, and not just chase the new opportunity of the week. That's what you see so many people doing, wanting to be first movers and seen as thought leaders for that. But I think true, over time thought leaders, there's almost a maturity, to the idea that...
Well, sure, it's earned. Absolutely. You can be intentional. And, as marketers, we do sort of reverse engineer what we can to understand what works and what doesn't, and then try to architect, plans to achieve a particular outcome, right? And so we can do that with thought leadership. We can identify, well, what kind of thought leadership content is working for our competitors or in the industry or whatever. And we can use those sorts of signals to help develop the greatest likelihood of content that will get the results we're looking for. But at the same time, it is earned. Yeah. You're putting information of value out to a community, to your audience, and it's how they respond that determines whether you're seen as a thought leader, whether you realize the benefits of being a thought leader.
We're getting somewhere here. Thought leadership is expertise achieved through consistency with a unique point of view or some distinctive aspect. Now, it's not something that you can claim, but rather something that is bestowed upon you by your audience, which you've built through your consistent quality content or thoughts or work. Now, I know you might be thinking that if you're a small business, you don't have the means or the team or the authority or the clout to be considered a thought leader, but the experts say otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, look at AJ the Inspector, right? I mean, it's one person. It's a company of one in Nashville. And look, insofar as people associate me with thought leadership, and I hope they do, but again, I don't claim that for myself. It was just me for a long time. All those blog posts that I wrote before people said I was a thought leader was me in my house. So yes, absolutely, small businesses can do it. And I think partially they don't try because they think they can't, and that's a shame. And I would say it's easier now, even than it was when I started, 15 years ago, because now there are so many more ways that you can express expertise, like a TikTok channel or whatever the circumstances are. When I was starting out, it was really, even YouTube was pretty nascent then, so it was kind of like write blog posts. There weren't a lot of other options. Podcasting didn't exist, or at least didn't really exist. YouTube wasn't the thing it is now. There wasn't an Instagram. There wasn't a lot of the things that we would use to express thought leadership today. So now, if you're starting from scratch, it's like, oh, well, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it if you want to.
Credibility comes in different ways. It's not always about the number of followers that you have or even the size of your company, the revenue that you have. Kind of back to my point earlier about knowing what makes you different and what you specialize in is really how, if you can really dig into that, anyone can be a thought leader. It's just a matter of, knowing how to talk about the thing that you're leading.
Right.
And I think anyone, and that's part of it too, I think that some people who maybe are new to the industry or, maybe a startup, they get afraid to be thought leaders because they feel that they don't have that clout. And I think having that courage and confidence can actually, that's half the battle, is just having the confidence to speak out about something that you feel strongly about.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't think that clout actually matters in that.
I think anybody can be a thought leader. I think my grandmother, and my family was a thought leader, for the family, right? It's in the space that you're playing in. So if a small brand is significant in the lives, or their message or their product or their service is significant in the lives of 10, 100, 1,000 people, I think there's certainly can be seen as a thought leader. And brands in small communities, quite often maybe they have 6 or 7 competitors, so to speak, but there seems to always be one or two that really seem to be the leading edge, not just business-wise, but just in their practices and how they approach their industry. And so I think there are many, many ways that you can apply this idea.
A size limit or anything? Are there different levels of thought leadership maybe?
I think that this is a great time for small brands and, quite frankly, solopreneurs and individuals to become thought leaders. And one of the reasons that that's happened is not only because social media gives us this window into a much wider world, right? But also because social media channels are moving in a much more narrative direction. So if you look at a platform like TikTok or Instagram Reels, what they're actually trying to do is take short form video and make it have a beginning, middle, and end, have more of a point, have more of a narrative. And so for a lot of smaller individuals, there is an opportunity to explore these topics in a deeper way. One of my colleagues at Convince and Convert now has more than 11,000 followers on TikTok talking about career development because she is breaking down a lot of the questions that people have in an easy to digest way and giving them that advice of, okay, so if you're facing this issue with speaking to your boss about a raise, here's 3 things that you can do and why. And she's producing these videos pretty much on the fly on her regular walks and then building an audience because the audience finds it really useful to get this information in that way. So absolutely, small businesses can be really effective in thought leadership if they are changing their mindset around what it is that they can have a unique, thoughtful approach to, rather than saying, I have to cover the big news stories that a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal is covering, right? Because you're not going to have that audience, and that audience doesn't want that information from you.
Right.
They want something authentic and specific to your experience.
So if you're a smaller brand, like say that you are a marketing team of 1 at a smaller brand and you're thinking about how do I become a thought leader, how do I advance your knowledge, I mean, I guess in some ways, the goal isn't to become a thought leader, right? The goal is to become smarter and to try to accumulate as many connections and as much knowledge as you can in a very, authentic way. And so what does that mean? It just means like filling your head with the right kinds of content, reading things that you find enjoyable and that you find credible, number one. Coming to events like this one that we're at together, first one in 18 months or so, something like that. Making connections here, talking to people. I mean, that's all, it sounds like nothing, but it's everything, really. It's that organic impulse to connect with other people and to ultimately grow your own expertise and advance your own thought leadership, and that's where it comes from.
Enterprises probably won't want to hear this, but smaller brands, solo creators have a much easier time of it. Now, frankly, put aside the fact that they don't have the type of resources that large enterprises do, but they don't have the politics of the red tape or the approvals to go through. If you're a podcaster, I can convince you to do something and you can do it tomorrow. Right. If you're a content marketer that you work for a 1,000-person or 5,000-person organization, you've got 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year of approvals ahead of you. So it is much easier for the lonely creator to do something than the enterprise. So that's why if you talk to somebody like a Robert Rose, he'll say we have to be agile, we have to act like we don't have the politics, don't have the red tape. That's like a lot of horrible things happened with COVID-19, but if you're talking about some of the good things that happened, we got rid of some of the red tape and the politics in the organizations because there was no choice. There's oh my goodness, we have to act differently now because things have changed. Right. We can't do business as usual. So that freed up a lot of things. My concern is as we go back to whatever the new normal is, some of that red tape will return. And as a content marketer, you have to make sure that doesn't happen. So you have to add internal training programs to the stakeholders in your organization, those that handle the budget, so they understand what it takes to build an audience, what that means for, in this case, thought leadership, what it's going to do for us selling more products and services and new revenue channels and new product opportunities that we never had before. So education is critical to making this happen.
Any business, brand, or individual can be a thought leader in any industry, niche, intersection, or area of knowledge. But what does this look like in the real world? Who's doing it well?
Well, since I'm in the digital marketing space, I feel like I deal with a lot of brands in that space. So I'm going to give you a couple examples there. I think that our friends at CoSchedule are doing an excellent job. They have a really in-depth blog where they're sharing a ton of really great resources. Our friends at Rival IQ are also doing a really great job. They're a social media measurement company, and they are doing some really fantastic benchmark reports because they know that that is where they are really credible, right? Because they're social media measurement. So they can tell you what's happening across all these different channels. Right. They're rolling that up. They're figuring out what matters within specific industries, and then they're giving you here's what that means for you. And I think that's a really great example of thought leadership. I also think that HubSpot is doing a fantastic job, and what they have really understood is, again, that piece of the puzzle that I was talking about earlier of what can you do about this thing, and they're giving you those tools. So they've got tons of templates, downloadable worksheets, downloadable workbooks that you can work through with your team. And I think that idea of turning their thought leadership into tools is a great example of, again, making it even more valuable and really thinking through that delivery mechanism.
I live in the mountains in Colorado, and some of my favorite brands are outdoor brands, of course, for the things we're doing. One of my favorites is Patagonia. I just think that, they're one of those product companies that, first off, has a great story. If you haven't read Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard, who is the founder of Patagonia, great book. And it's really, even though it's very much a product company, some might even say they've become a fashion company. It's really, it's all about being outdoors. It's all about, recycling and being sustainable. I mean, they do things that probably hurt sales in some cases. Like they have a thing where if you don't want a jacket anymore, you just feel like you want to get this year's color, or something. You send it into them, and they'll give you some money, and they have a used clothing store. If you rip something, they want you to send it in. They'll fix it for free because a lot of the idea of being outdoors is this idea of protecting the environment and being living in a way that's sustainable. And I think that a lot of brands have a tendency, even if that's the story they're telling on their website, their actual actions, are more about how can we sell you more stuff. And so that's one that I cite, all the time, because I just think that they really live kind of the founder story, and I think really connect at a deep level with their most enthusiastic customers.
Yeah.
I think REI is a great brand when it comes to thought leadership, because it's not just about the great outdoors, but it's also about thought leadership in how do we take care of this round ball that we live on, and how do we look at making the values and beliefs that we have true and accountable, clear through our supply chain. And I think those are different kind of elements when we look at thought leadership than maybe we have in the past. I think in the past it's been more about, from my brand out, and not looking nearly as deeply about how we behave as an organization as we've needed to in this last year.
That's really interesting, the REI example, because thought leadership, it tends to be sort of this like marketing buzzword that's like around content, right? We have to put out content, but REI, when you think about REI, you don't think about content or marketing.
No, you don't.
So you don't have to be that kind of a business to be a thought leader.
Well, I tend to have a bias, of course, towards marketing and MarTech and ad tech and things like that. So I'll try to go beyond that a little bit. Think about somebody like Patagonia around sort of sustainability and supply chain, right? I think they don't sell sustainability; they sell clothes and gear, obviously, but they're so associated with being leaders in that space that I think they can rightfully claim thought leadership. Somebody like LinkedIn, for example, around jobs and recruiting and hiring and trends along that line, right? Sure. I mean, they have done really smart things, which is not fall into the trap of trying to be sort of Facebook plus business, right? I mean, to some degree, yes, but they've always kind of pivoted back to jobs and job seekers and careers and those kind of things. And it's smart to kind of niche it down in that regard. Think about Moz for SEO, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there who know a lot of stuff about SEO, right? A lot. But they've always been towards the top of that stack, primarily because of the work that Rand Fishkin did when he was there, in terms of, hey, let's have a show, and this show is going to be Whiteboard Fridays, and we're going to express expertise consistently every week over a period of years, and you look back over your shoulder after those years have gone by, and everybody says, you're the one who really knows what they're talking about.
Well, obviously both Adobe and Salesforce are. LinkedIn, I think, is really made an incredible amount of progress in being a thought leader about advertising, B2B advertising and marketing, not just a place where people put up their digital resumes and where recruiters can go source candidates. And also on the sales side, this with their Sales Navigator tool. And I should disclaim that, they're a client of ours, but they made a conscious decision about 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago to start to create content around what they wanted to be perceived a thought leader about. You know what I mean? And you Google B2B marketing right now, and they're number one. Right. And that's not what most people would think of when they think of LinkedIn.
Thank you to Michael Barber, Joe Pulizzi, Zontee Hou, Jay Baer, Rachel Mann, Ann Handley, Carla Johnson, John Jantsch, Melanie Deziel, and Lee Odden for being incredibly generous with their time, for sharing their insights and expertise with us, and sitting down next to me and talking about thought leadership as well as many other great things. Now is the time of the episode where I would normally say the catchphrase, but instead, I think we're going to let them say it.
Go forth
and automate.
Go forth.
Go forth.
Go forth and automate.
Go forth and automate.
Go forth
and automate.
Go forth and automate.